Hi, folks, and today I thought we would talk about shoes because shoes are probably one of the more important things that you're going to buy for your running career. I should start by saying that most things in running have no shortage of different opinions, and shoes is one of those. So I'm simply going to tell you kind of where I land as it relates to shoes. Doesn't make it right or wrong because I'll guarantee you will find plenty of opinions that are the exact opposite of what I'm going to say. I'm not saying they're right or wrong either. I kind of know what works for me. I've got an opinion on shoes and I'm sharing my opinion because it's kind of my channel. So first of all, when you go to shoes, you've probably heard there's motion control and stability shoes and neutral shoes, and I pronate, I overpronate, I supinate, all kinds of different things with shoes. Now, there are some people that probably do need a very specific shoe, but they're in the minority. The vast majority of people, what you want is you want a super comfortable shoe. You want a shoe that feels like it was made for you. It fits like a glove. It is super comfy. That's really the big overriding thing over anything I'll say. I don't think most people need to worry about neutral and pronation and all the other stuff. They want a shoe that feels really, really good. That's job one. Next, I believe that less is more. In other words, you have minimalist shoes. If you remember when Vibrams, those five-finger things, that's very minimalist. It's almost barefoot, all the way up to Hoka is probably the one that you think of the most. It's very big, lots of cushion in there. Nothing against those. I believe is less is more. I'm not saying to go to a Vibram, but I think less is more for a couple of reasons. One, the less weight you're carrying, generally the easier it is to run. Number two, the less there is between the ground and your foot, the better your proprioception, which is how well your foot can feel the ground. And I want to be able to have a little bit of a feel to that ground. So I generally believe that less is more. So for me, I try to wear a little bit less shoe than more shoe. Go back to this though, super comfy is the word. So if you're saying, gee, I've got a bulkier shoe. If it's super comfy, that's really the big thing. Next, so you've got shoe and foot strike. A lot of times you'll hear shoe companies talking about, get this shoe, it's going to change your foot strike. And there are people who will tell you that yes, your shoe can change your foot strike. I land on the side of, yeah, probably not. Your foot strike is going to be what it is. That shoe is not going to do much to affect that. With one exception, if you have a really big, thick heel drop on the shoe, I think that makes you a little more prone to land on your heel just because of the bulkiness on there when your foot is coming down. But by and large, I do not buy into shoes affect your foot strike very much. So again, my opinion. Now I mentioned that with shoes, you've got two things. You've got the stack height to consider on a shoe, and you've got the heel drop consider on the shoe. They're related, they're not exactly the same thing. So I'll give you an example. The Saucony A, which is a shoe I happen to wear, and the Hoka One, a shoe I don't wear, they both have a 4mm heel drop. So heel drop just means the difference between where your forefoot is going to land and the heel. There's a 4mm difference between those. That's fairly level, so your foot is fairly level. If you think of high heels, you have a big heel drop, but they're both 4mm. The stack height, though, is very different. So stack height, think of stack height being the farthest distance from the ground to, in most cases, it's going to be the heel. In the Saucony, it is a 16mm stack height. That's about 0.63 inches. The Hoka One is 41mm stack height, or 1.61 inches. So there's a lot more shoe to the Hoka. You have a lot more underneath. So even though both have a 4mm heel drop, there's a lot more shoe to the Hoka because you've got almost a full inch more between the ground and where your foot is. I tried the Hokas once and I did not like them. I know plenty of people that love Hokas, and this is not meant to diss the Hokas. It wasn't for me because I like little shoe. I didn't like having all that stuff between my foot and the ground. The Saucony isn't something I'd wear for a marathon, but I wear the Saucony for a half marathon. I do it for my speed work and things like that. So another thing, heel drop. It generally ranges between 0 inches and about 13mm. So 0 inches is where you hear people talking about a zero drop shoe. And I think the heel drop is more in vogue of what people talk about right now and where do they want to go, what do you want to do from a heel drop standpoint. I will tell you, for me, I like a heel drop to be about 3 to 4 millimeters. I've tried zero drop shoes. They don't meet the first criteria. They're not super comfy. I don't feel like I run well in a zero drop shoe. It's not comfortable for me, but that 3 to 4 millimeters is just about right for me. Now your standard shoe, most are going to be 9, 10, 11 millimeters. And a lot of people say, hey, I want to go to less of a drop in my shoe. And that's fine, but you have to make sure you have the flexibility, the strength, and the mobility in your calf and Achilles to do that. Because if you're used to running in a shoe that has, say, a 10 millimeter drop, and all of a sudden you go to a 4, if you don't have that flexibility, strength, mobility in the calf, you're going to get injured. So you want to make sure that you're really working on your calves and you want to ease into a shoe if you want to go to a lower drop. Again, my intent is not to sell you on a lower drop, just give you my opinions on shoes and what works for me. Go back again, super comfy is what the word is for you. A couple miscellaneous things on shoes. I would recommend that you have at least 2 pairs of shoes in your rotation, and you can have more if you want to. So why 2? Different models as well. So I would not get the exact same shoe twice, but the idea behind having more than 1 pair of shoe is each one will fit your foot a little bit differently. And I think that variety is good for your foot. It makes your foot stronger, and strong feet are very, very important. Now people say, geez, I don't know if I can afford 2 pair of shoes. I do get it's money up front, and maybe you can't afford that. But overall, you don't really spend more money. If you get, say, 400 miles out of a pair of shoes, well, if you have 2 pairs of shoes, it's going to be 800 miles before they both need to get replaced. If you have 1 pair of shoes, it's 400. So you really use the shoes about the same amount. But I do recommend, if the budget affords, 2 or more pair of shoes is the way you want to go. So there's some of my thoughts on shoes. I'll leave you with one last thought that you've heard before. Through all the things I've said, go with number 1. Get a shoe that's super comfy to wear.